All right. Well, we can probably kick things off soon. Righty. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to kick things off today. I'm joined by none other than Kassia Clifford, one of my really good friends, a mentor to me, a role model, and an old coworker. She's an absolute inspiration, and I'm so excited for her to share some of her stories with you all today. And Kassia's journey is a little bit unique because it's been anything but linear. So she kicked things off in social work. She's studied abroad. She started her MBA. She's launched her own business, and now she's kind of dove into cybersecurity. So she's truly done it all, and we're going to get a bit of a glimpse of what that journey looked like for her and what ultimately brought her to cybersecurity. Right now, she is currently the Security Compliance Manager at Knak, a company here in Ottawa. They're a fast-growing company that provides a codeless marketing tool for enterprise marketing teams. And so just before we get started, I'll let everyone know that we will record the session and share this on the Techsploration YouTube channel for you to rewatch, or for other students who weren't able to make it. But today our audience is filled with high school students, so I thought it would be fitting to take you back in time, Kassia, and learn more about you in high school. So what was high school like for you?
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. So excited to be here, and thanks everyone from Techsploration for inviting me on, and everyone who joined in. I'm always pumped to talk about the eclectic background I have and how I landed here where I am now. Mm-hmm. So in high school, I started out being shy and terrified, I think like most. And then to push through, I got really involved in student council, so student government. And I was a grade representative, worked my way up to a secretary position, and then was president in my last year. And what that meant is my role, as I saw it, was being really involved in the student body and motivating all of us to do good things, have school spirit, and really be a positive person, which meant I got to be myself. Mm-hmm. It also meant I got to use a microphone, which I love, as you know, and I had to push through any of the fears that I had of stage fright, mm-hmm. and, the normal physical things that happen when you're nervous, where your face goes red, or your neck goes red, or your mouth is dry, all of that stuff that has helped me in my professional life now, mm-hmm. connecting with other human beings, whether it's public speaking at events like this or just one-on-one building real relationships with people.
Yeah. And with that experience in high school, did you think you knew where you wanted to go? Or was it related to those experiences?
I did not know where I was going at all in high school, other than I was getting out of there. Mm-hmm. I knew that. Not that I wasn't grateful for the experience. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to explore new things. Mm-hmm. So I think when I was really young, I wanted to be an actress, and I was certain that was my path. And then mid-high school, I thought, well, I'll probably be a lawyer because, they make good money, and I'm super great at arguing different points. And then I got to the end of high school, and I really didn't know. And at the time, a lot of people were saying, well, you should become a teacher. They get summers off. And that was basically the argument. And I thought, I don't know if that really sticks with me. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I certainly wasn't sure at all. I just knew that I would figure it out. And it's funny, actually, I'm moving and I was packing my yearbooks. And one of the things I wrote, it asks, one of the questions you're asked in your grade 12 year is, where do you think you'll end up? And people would say, a job or with a place, mm-hmm. or with a family. And I said, in my place. I was just like, I'm going to give myself a little opportunity to figure that out as I get there.
That is so beautiful. That is beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. And I think that's really interesting that you, and likely it's pretty similar to a lot of students. I remember feeling the same way. Like I had, and it wasn't that I didn't necessarily know what I wanted. It was almost like this paralysis from all of the options that I could go out and pursue. So how did you, from being in that position, jump into a post-secondary education in like sociology and French? What ultimately brought you there after high school?
Yeah, great question. And I do think it's important to note kind of the pressure that we feel because of paradox of choice. You know, that's something I learned in sales. You give too many options and it's difficult to know what to choose. And so when we were in high school, there's so many options, which is amazing, but how the heck do you figure out what to do? So I guess I'll say I chose to study sociology and sociology because I could not understand why people would bring pain onto others. Like it just did not compute for me. Like, why would you ever be mean to people? Why is there war? Like, what's happening in the world? Why are people acting like this? And I figured, well, I might as well study that. And French is a beautiful language. It's like a song. So I knew that not only would that help me with career opportunities, which it has, it also was something that I just think is beautiful and I like it.
Yes, I love that. And it led to a job opportunity for you, which, you know, it's not in cybersecurity, but I think it was still, you know, a significant part of who you are right now. And I'm sure it plays into your role in cybersecurity. But I know you worked for, you know, an organization working with mental illness, or people with mental illnesses. And so could you talk a bit more about that experience coming out of school or with your education background?
Yeah, for sure. So I had some really amazing work opportunities, and that one with the mental health and illness program, it was actually a summer job. So I was still in university. I think it was my first summer out of first year, and it was a program run through the hospital. I was super scared and terrified again, just like grade 9 and grade 10 and basically all of high school. But by then I had a whole year of university under my belt, and I'd experienced different things, so I had a bit more confidence. And that really opened my eyes. You know, I think we do a lot better job today talking about mental illness and really just mental health. You know, we care for our physical bodies, let's care for our mental bodies, mental minds as well. But that opened my eyes as to how more people, even in my small community in rural Eastern Ontario, how people are struggling, and then also what kind of supports are in place to help them. So that was really interesting. I also worked as a beer cart girl during that summer too, because, you know, I like sunshine and I got a free golf membership. And I remember making tips, you know, and thinking, well, I was making $20 an hour. It's like, I hadn't earned that kind of money yet in my life. And that was pretty cool. So a little taste of commission that came later as I did enter into cyber. And I will say I rely on that sociology degree more than I probably did in social services work now that I am in cybersecurity, because a lot of security is about how are we changing people's behavior and what motivates them to operate in certain ways. Yeah.
And creating that huge internal change within organizations, like a lot of the heavy lifting there, I'm sure. A lot of it translates from, you know, the work and the learnings that you had in your degree. So that's pretty cool. And I know you mentioned, you know, that life was scary and there was so much going on, you know, in high school. And I think that's really the rest of life too, throughout university or college, throughout work life. Like, you know, it doesn't get any less scary. You just start challenging yourself with new things, and those things become, you know, new fears. But that's the beauty of life.
It is 100%.
Yeah. So from that experience, maybe you can help us all kind of fill in the gaps from that degree to cybersecurity and what ultimately brought you there.
Yeah, sure. So the beginning of my career, I fell into social services work, and what I mean by that is, because I still didn't know what I wanted to do, I left university. I'm like, well, I'm you know, I came, I conquered. I'm done with this. I'd like to get in the working world and see what that's all about, make some money. I'm tired of all these exams and papers and stuff that I need to do. And so I'm very grateful for those experiences. However, I didn't at the time have any clue how that fit into the longer term vision of my life. And so I started working at a women's shelter, actually, in the town I grew up in. And so I was working in the residence where there were 24-hour shifts. That was pretty intense, also eye-opening. And then I got a maternity leave contract and that was kind of like my first big girl job, I often called it. And from there, I moved on to doing crisis intervention work with military communities. So I worked with a nonprofit at Base Petawawa. And we were still serving in Afghanistan at that time. So I had a lot of family members as well as military members come to my office for support because I was outside of the chain of command. And at the time, I learned a lot about restricted data and following certain policies and standard operating procedures to share information and what that would be like. And so that's, right now, when I look back, I can see how the first couple of years of my career where I spent doing safety planning, risk assessments, and really supporting people in making changes in their own life or their families helps me now in cyber as I'm helping organizations do that same thing. As is the custom in social work, I burnt out. Normally it's 5 years. I lasted 4, but I like doing things fast, right? So I do. And so I moved on. I spent some time with my family's business. I grew up in a family-run agribusiness that also does some commercial construction. And so, again, male-dominated space, working with entrepreneurs. That was really interesting. And I realized I wanted to prioritize my relationship with my family, therefore best not to work together. Not everyone can do that. Yeah. And then I moved into spend a bit of time working with a national fitness chain and then post-secondary education. And then I found my first startup, and it was a social enterprise startup, Venture for Canada. This is an amazing organization for anyone in high school. They do actually support high school students now as well. I was part of helping them build that out, where they recruit entrepreneurial new grads or high school students and place them with startups, supporting and boosting local economy, as well as getting more entrepreneurial youth the experience they need to catapult their career. So that was really cool, and it's how I met my first cybersecurity company, which is a startup, Boast Around Security. They're based in New Brunswick, and they were one of my first partner startups. So a few years after I'd met them, their team was growing, and they knocked on my door to see if I wanted to come in and be their first marketing resource. And I was employee number 12. It was really exciting. I didn't understand anything. I knew I had taken an IT and e-business class when I was pursuing my MBA. And so I had learned about the dark net and the types of horrible things that happen there. Previously, I didn't really think that was actually real, but it is. And I met the CEO, and I realized, holy cannoli, there are these security experts who have so much knowledge. They seem very fired up about the problem, all the hackers and the cybersecurity threat landscape that you and I have worked in. And they seem also to perhaps struggle in communicating it in a way that makes me care. And I thought, well, I might be able to help here, right? So that's kind of how I got myself into the space.
And do you feel like that was kind of the aha moment, like, this is my calling, or this is what I truly want to pursue? Or do you feel it was more of a gradual, like, year over year, you kind of slowly fell into it?
I would say I'm looking for a quote on my wall that helped flip. And so I would say it's a labor of love. It was not an immediate love at first sight with me in cybersecurity. I was very invested in learning a new industry, and I thought I saw the business value in growing up in a family-run business that, spoke to me. I was like, ooh, this is neat. Like, this seems like something many people don't understand, and it helps businesses. And the other aspect of it, I don't think I'd shared that, but in high school, I did my lifeguarding courses. And so I taught swimming lessons and was a lifeguard. So there's an element of me that's very invested in supporting a community and civic duty, just like what's best for the masses. And I saw cybersecurity as an opportunity to help in a different way, where we need a ton of help because there's a huge talent shortage, and there are more and more breaches that we hear about every day. And even with COVID and more people working from home and school happening from home, that's just blowing up, right? So I think I was in the field for about a year and realized, whoa, I have so much to learn. I'm just starting to understand a little bit about what's happening. And so that's what started me flipping. And there was this quote, I can't find it, but it's Daniel Meisler. He's a pretty well-known guy in cybersecurity. And he had basically said, one of the biggest opportunities in cyber is to find people who can bridge the gap between the subject matter experts and business folks. Because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is something that's really hard to quantify, and often business owners only think in terms of dollar value because, they're trying to feed their families, feed their team members, and be profitable. So anyone who can bridge that gap is who we need in this industry at this time. And I thought, that sounds like an interesting challenge that I could try.
And here you are, the cybersecurity interpreter, as you call yourself, and it's true to a T. And you serve that every single day, I think. So that's beautiful.
Thank you.
You do.
Thanks, Olivia.
Yeah. And so earlier on, coming out of high school or throughout all of that, roller coaster ride of cool, awesome opportunities and work experience, did you have mentors, either one or two that were maybe consistent throughout, or did that kind of change throughout that journey for you?
Yeah, great question. I'll say when I was younger, I struggled to ask for help. It still is something I struggle with. I'm a recovering perfectionist, as you know, and sometimes I relapse, right? And so that means that often I think I can do it all alone. And that's not the case. We're not on this earth for that. I know that to be true. So I'll say when I was in high school, thankfully I had those leadership courses and I was part of Kinsman Pool. So I will give Susie Q a big shout out wherever she is. She was my boss at the pool and she served as a mentor for me in more ways than she ever knew. Simply because it was that stage of my life where I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on, all the competing demands from my friends. I didn't know who, I was still figuring out who I am, same as I am now, but I just didn't realize that that's okay, and that's lifelong. As I got older, and I'll say especially the last handful of years, like my last 3 years, I've built Team Kassia, of which you were part, right? So in that team, I have an executive coach, I have a therapist, I have a financial planner, I have a bestie, I have a sister-in-law who tells me like it is and holds me accountable, and I have mentors in cybersecurity. I've been really blessed to have people who will share resources with me. They'll tell me their first time building a security and compliance program, or how to align all business activities to a framework and not have people, think you're the enemy because you're asking them to change the way that they've been doing things. And so I'll say it's certainly changed in time, and it was like I had to let go of my pride and my ego a little bit to say, oh, right. It takes a community to raise a child, and I still need some help here.
Yeah, and I'll add, we've known each other for over a year now, and since like week one, I think we went to a conference, a women's conference, and I remember watching you. I think we were there for all of like 4 hours, and you popped around the room, and I'm sure by the time we left, you had met like 100 people. And you have helped every single one of them because you're just like a human connector. So I think it's a special gift that you have. Naturally you love to help people, and I think that you connect with people really well. And so that's probably been something that you've been developing throughout your whole life. So for the high school students, what kind of advice could you give them when they're kind of looking for mentorship or looking for someone to turn to that might help them kind of pave that path forward?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for that. It was the Women's Business Conference, and that was a super fun day. It was really close before COVID hit. So lovely. We got to be in the room. Yeah. And I do like shaking hands, right? I like meeting people and connecting. So that helps me a lot. Yes. And I leverage social media. I leverage LinkedIn for that now. And I've met a ton of people who I consider mentors on LinkedIn that I can pick up at any time with something where I'm feeling overwhelmed. So for high school students, what I would say that would be valuable is just remember everyone was once where you were. So there's no shame being exactly where you are. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, write that down if you need to. I got that on some Post-its in about every room in my space, just depending on what's going on in my life. However, I would say if you meet people, if you run into people, if you go to an event, if you come to something like this and you hear someone speak and you're like, oh, I like that lady's vibe, I want to know a little bit more, then reach out to them and ask them. The very worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say, I don't have time. And what is that about? It's not a rejection of you. That's about them not having time. However, many of them have been helped along the way. So they may be able to refer you to somewhere else, or they may be able to point you in the right direction, and someone who can help. So that's one, is when you meet somebody and you're in a space, ask for help, right? It's their job to say no and to monitor whether they can do it or not. And if you're not going places to meet people, start there, right? Because you're not going to meet anybody if, you're not putting yourself out there. And I know that can feel challenging when it's all virtual, but at the same time, it does make it a little less stressful because, you can put yourself on mute. So that's certainly one place. And then the other thing, if you're interested in STEM and cybersecurity in particular, I'll say, I got very involved when I came into the field with women in cybersecurity meetup groups, Ottawa cybersecurity meetup group. I've signed up for all these meetups, which are virtual groups that come together on a monthly basis to share information. And through them, I learn a ton. Plus, I meet real live human beings who I then can connect with that totally help me on my journey.
Yeah, I can agree with all of that. And I think, like, you brought up something super interesting with this virtual world that we're living in. I think it's almost like there's less of a barrier for you to reach out to people and connect. Because that's how we're all connecting right now. You don't have to physically attend an event locally or fly somewhere to meet people. You can reach out, and it's kind of more normalized now and very welcomed. I still find myself doing that now in my present day, reaching out for help, whether it's mentorship or help on projects that I'm working on. And I would consider myself someone who loves to give back as well. So when you reach out to people like yourself, they're always willing to and like you said, if they don't have the time, they'll let you know, and that's not a rejection to you. And really, you can try again. Like, I've heard some pretty cool stories, especially in the world of entrepreneurship, where people have reached out, over the span of 2 or 3 years, to meet, role models, and eventually people get back to you. So persistence is another thing.
Well, and that's something important to remember too. So good point there. I will say that global piece is interesting because I don't even know how it happened, but on LinkedIn, I had started doing in the last role these Friday application security videos, basically documenting that part of my journey in cybersecurity. And some of it was to feel connected to community because I was, like all of us, stuck inside. And I'll say through that, like, I met a beautiful human being before starting this new role. Shout out to Chris Sant, who's in New Zealand. And Guy sets me up with all these resources that totally took away the fear, any insecurities I had about moving into a new role with Knak to support them in building their security program, and just made me feel like I have a whole community that I can rely on and tap into at any time, right?
And that's so beautiful. And I'll add for the viewers, Kassia on LinkedIn shares every week. She shares cybersecurity videos. So if you are looking for some resources and kind of a taste of what a day in the life of cybersecurity looks like, that is an awesome place to start. Completely free and public, so feel free to check that out. But I know we have about 6 minutes left. And so I wanted to dive a bit deeper into your current work experience now. And so maybe we can start by highlighting, I know it's a newer job, but what is, if there's kind of one thing, your favorite thing about your job day to day? What do you love most?
Ooh, interesting. One thing.
And if there's two, it's not a crime, so.
Okay, super. So I will say the top thing is I've found myself a team of amazing human beings. Everyone is so kind. I keep kind of looking over my shoulder and be like, what's happening here? But these, the people at Knak, they are building this amazing culture. They've been doing it for 5 years and they prioritize that. And we've scaled to growth. Since February, we've almost doubled the team size. It's bonkers. And so that's one part of it. And then in particular, my role, I had always wanted to do change management and consulting with organizations. And I had no idea how to get there. And what's really exciting is, I kind of snuck it into every single job that I had because I'm a problem solver. But here I'm brought on to help the company build a security and compliance program, bring together everything they've been doing. And they've been doing amazing for a startup the size they are. They've been crushing it. So bring all of that together and then support in spreading the good word of cybersecurity, which I'm really passionate about within the team as well. So I feel really, excited to be able to do that with some good humans who are kindly accepting change as we move forward.
Yeah, and for the Kassia that I know, or the Kassia I've known for the past couple of years, I feel like this position just seems so aligned with with what you were striving for, right? And the work experience that you have and what you're passionate about and where you're also skilled. So it's like the perfect intersection of all of those things. So it seems like a really cool opportunity. And now on the flip side, what do you feel like is the most challenging, or do you feel like something you'll face that will be kind of the most challenging part of your position there?
So I think I'm already facing it, and it's, I work with a ton of self-awareness. That doesn't mean I always know how to fix all the things I'm aware of that I'm working on over here. But I'll say, there's so much to do in a growing company, and right now my role is helping us become SOC 2 compliant, and SOC 2 is one of the highest regarded, most well-known cybersecurity frameworks that makes security a bit more tangible, so people can touch it and grab onto it and be like, oh, okay, that's what we spent that money on and did all those things for. We get this, right? It's an attestation at the end. So it really proves to our enterprise clients that we take their data and their information seriously, and we're protecting that. We're doing everything we can to do so. So what's hard? Well, what's hard is I know my role is asking people to change how they do things. And in order for people to change how they do things, from my sociology background and background in social work, I know people have to be ready to change. And so, you can bring a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. We know that. So, and that doesn't mean I'm running into blocks. It just means I'm aware that effective change management, in my belief, my experience, takes understanding the other person. So I feel like my job right now is get to know my colleagues, understand what works well for them, what doesn't, understand what they care about, what motivates them, and then figure out how can I flip them to open up their minds to cybersecurity and adopting these new habits. And so a lot of it is, again, like, okay, I want to do things perfectly. I want to take care of everything. Well, neither of those are realistic. Perfect is the enemy of the done. That's not going to happen. So it's moving the needle forwards, putting myself outside my comfort zone, knowing I'm learning with them, and knowing also that it's not my job to do all the things. It's to really narrow the focus on security and compliance for the company.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that just takes time. So patience is another thing when you're trying to move mountains, but also dealing with people, right? Like that often is one of the greatest challenges in most jobs. It ultimately boils down to people management and working with people. So no, that's a great addition. Thank you. And I know we have about a minute left, so maybe I will open the floor to questions. And if there aren't any questions, then we can close out and see if Kassia has kind of a final thought or a piece of advice that you would have given, high school version of you a few years ago.
Yes. So happy to take questions anytime. I did put my LinkedIn profile in the chat as well. So feel welcome to hit me up and connect. Even if you don't know what to say, that's cool. I will accept your request. And you can hit me up later. Unless you look suspicious and like a threat actor, in which case it might take me several weeks to sleuth you out. And then I will accept your request. But the advice I would give to me, high school me, or to anybody else that's listening is, well, there's two. One is trust your instincts. Okay, so if you in your belly know you want to do something, or something feels really scary and wrong, listen to that. Okay, like that's your inner compass. Pay attention. And the next thing is, if you don't know something, just Google it. Like the number of times I've looked like a hero from Googling it and trying to figure it out, and then saying, hey, I'm new to this, but and that can be like the beginning of my career. How to manage performance with an employee who's 20 years older than you. Like, I don't know how to do that in my mid-20s, but I'm managing a team of 10 people and I gotta get things moving. Or the number of, the jargon and the language in cybersecurity. There's no way I'm gonna learn that and know that all. So I looked up API at least 15 times in my first 3 months selling pen testing. It's simple, really. That would be the main advice I would give.
I love that. That's beautiful and so true. I think there's, a YouTube video, a blog, an app for pretty well anything. or a human out there with the answers, and all it takes is reaching out to them. So no, that's awesome advice. And I think if there's no questions, we can wrap up here. Once again, thank you so much, Kassia, for joining us today, and I hope that we've kind of inspired or helped some young girls figure out their path forward, or at least explore a career in cybersecurity. And again, I think Kassia left her information in the chat, so feel free to reach out to her, as well as myself if you have any questions or future recommendations for these live sessions. But I think if there are no questions, we'll wrap up right there.